Only that day dawns to which we are wide awake. Thoreau really makes you think, doesn't he?
He really does.
Especially when you think about, well, how we connect with people.
Yeah, that awareness piece.
Have you ever met someone just super smart, maybe brilliant in their job, but when it comes to people, they just seem, I don't know, completely tone deaf?
Oh, absolutely. It's like there's a whole different kind of intelligence missing, isn't there?
Exactly. And that really brings us to what we're digging into today.
Right.
We're doing a deep dive into Selling with Emotional Intelligence by Mitch Anthony.
And it sounds like it's just for sales, but
Not at all. I mean, yeah, the title says sales, but honestly, the stuff in here, it's gold for anyone trying to, understand people better.
totally agree. Our listeners sent over some key bits from the book, and our mission here is really to pull out those core ideas about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, figure out how these principles work, how they can actually help us be more successful.
Not just in like making a sale, but building
Mhm.
real connections, right? Getting those aha moments.
Without it feeling like a textbook.
Exactly. Keep it practical.
It reminds me of that Goldman research, the one saying EQ is like, what, 85% of success?
Yeah, and IQ is only the other 15%. Kind of flips the script on what we usually think matters most.
It really does.
And Anthony takes that whole EQ idea from Goldman and really narrows the focus onto sales.
Which makes sense because sales situations are often so emotionally charged, right?
Definitely. You really see EQ or the lack of it playing out very clearly there.
But, and this is key, it's not just sales. Managing your own feelings, understanding others,
Universal skills, absolutely. For work, for home, for just about everything.
it's like your secret weapon for navigating tricky conversations or leading a team.
For sure. And today we're going to look at 5 main areas Anthony covers. He uses this acronym ARROW.
Arrow. Okay.
Stands for awareness, restraint, resilience, others, which is empathy, and working with others, like building rapport.
Got it. Arrow.
And he has this arrow profile too, sort of a self-check tool for these areas.
Okay, so where do we start? The foundation, I guess.
Let's
Awareness.
do it. Awareness. Now, in the book, this isn't just knowing stuff intellectually.
Right, not just brain power.
No, she calls it a big mind function. It's about really knowing, sensing, and accepting yourself and others too.
Moving beyond just criticism or analysis,
Exactly. It's a deeper grasp of the emotional side of things.
which, as he points out, is maybe less crucial if your job is purely data entry or something.
Right. But if you're in the people business, which sales definitely is,
And arguably, most of us are in some way.
then ignoring these emotional dynamics is a huge blind spot. Awareness is fundamental.
Okay, so tell me more about this ARROW acronym. You said it's a metaphor.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. He sees the arrow as representing what stands between us and reaching our goals.
Okay.
Our emotional skills are EQ. That's the arrow that helps us hit the target, our goals.
And if the arrow's crooked or broken, meaning low EQ,
Then all your other efforts, your skills, your planning might just fall flat. It undermines everything.
wow, that really puts it into perspective.
Yeah.
So remind me of the 5 parts of ARROW again.
Sure. It's awareness, restraint, resilience, others, empathy, and working with others, rapport.
ARROW. Got it. And the arrow profile helps you figure out where you are with these.
Exactly. It's a self-assessment. You get statements for each area,
Uh-huh.
and you rate yourself from 1, meaning never, up to 5, all the time.
Sort of like a personal EQ checkup.
Yeah, but he warns you, be honest. Don't lowball yourself, but don't, puck yourself up too much either.
Right. Try to be objective. Can you give us a feel for the kinds of questions, like one for each area?
Sure. For awareness, maybe something like, I can usually understand why I am feeling a certain way.
Okay. Makes sense?
For restraint, I am able to wait for something that I really want. Or maybe I can stop myself saying something regrettable when I'm mad.
Yeah. Resilience?
I can quickly pull myself out of negative moods. Something like that.
For others, the empathy part.
Maybe. I can easily sense what others are feeling.
And the last one, working with others.
How about people feel at ease around me?
Okay, so they really make you think about specific behaviors and tendencies.
Exactly. It's designed to spark that self-reflection. That's the first step to awareness and improvement.
And Anthony asks some good questions around this too, right? Like why we click with some people instantly.
And struggle with others, or what really separates the good salespeople from the truly great ones, emotionally speaking.
Yeah, digging beyond just the surface level stuff.
Which leads nicely into his concept of critical mass for sales success.
Okay, critical mass. Sounds important. What is it?
He defines it as the sort of intangible, internal qualities, emotional, psychological, that you consistently see in the top
The
performers.
inner stuff that drives them.
Exactly, the
And
drivers.
he breaks this critical mass down to 4 parts.
Yes, four components: competitive drive, achievementality, teachability, and wit.
Okay, let's unpack those. Competitive drive, what does that look like?
It's being resourceful, really wanting to win, hating to lose,
Uh-huh.
handling pressure well, being self-confident, and bouncing back from setbacks. That resilience piece again.
Gotcha. And achievementality, that's an interesting word.
It is. He uses it to capture that drive to get results. It means doing your homework, really wanting to earn,
Right.
staying focused, being goal-oriented, and taking ownership, responsibility for your actions.
So being prepared, results-driven, and accountable. What about teachability?
This is huge. It's wanting to learn, wanting to improve, being willing to teach others too,
Right.
learning from mistakes instead of making excuses, and knowing what you don't know yet. That growth mindset.
Essential. And the last one, wit.
Yeah.
Is that just being funny?
Not just funny, though. Humor helps. It's more about being quick on your feet, adaptable.
Oh,
Having a self-deprecating sense of humor helps, not taking yourself too seriously.
right.
It's also about diffusing tension, handling conflict constructively, adjusting to difficult personalities, mental agility, really.
So quick thinking, humor is a tool, and keeping cool under pressure. He makes a strong point about how this inner critical mass relates to actual skills, doesn't he?
He really does. He quotes someone, Angie Coppin, saying that just teaching sales skills without this inner foundation is like, well, dressing up a pig for the dance.
Ah, that's blunt but memorable.
It sticks, right. His point is success is driven from the inside out. You need that internal energy, that critical mass.
So you can teach techniques, but if the drive or the teachability isn't there,
It might not stick or lead to real sustained success.
but you don't need to be perfect in all 4 areas.
Yay.
That's probably a relief for people listening.
Definitely not. He found successful people were often strong in maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
But importantly, they usually knew their weaker spots and how those sometimes held them back. Knowing is half the battle.
And this idea is useful for managers too, isn't it? He mentions a critical mass report card.
Yeah, it's a way for managers to kind of grade their team on these 4 areas, like a GPA.
And the results were interesting.
Very. People who scored average on critical mass were apparently twice as hard to manage as the high scorers.
Wow. Shows how much this internal stuff matters for teamwork too. And it's not just raw talent, is it? He talks about talent versus being a champion.
Right. That hockey scout story really drives it home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the scout valued things like character, coachability, part of teachability, and drive more than just pure skill when looking at a top prospect.
Because talent isn't enough on its own. You need the willingness to learn and grow.
Exactly. That's what makes a champion.
And for anyone listening who hires people, he gives some good interview question examples to get at this stuff.
Yeah, really practical ones. Like for achievementality, asking about their biggest earning success, but then probing why only that much makes them think.
Ooh, that's a good one. What about for teachability?
Something like, what subject would you really like to learn about right now, and why haven't you started yet?
Those definitely get past the rehearsed answers. Okay, so that's awareness and the critical mass, foundational stuff. Now let's talk about managing our own emotions. Next in Arrow is restraint.
Right, restraint. This is all about keeping those destructive emotions in check, practicing patience.
Which is easier said than done sometimes.
Absolutely. He talks about the viral spiral of emotion, how one negative feeling, if unchecked, can just spread and poison everything.
We've all seen that happen or
Right.
done it. He brings in Goldman's amygdala hijack concept here.
He does. The amygdala, our brain's emotional center, can get overwhelmed and trigger a fast, maybe irrational reaction.
Like a faulty alarm system going off.
Kind of, yeah. An oversensitive alarm company, as Anthony puts it. It bypasses the rational brain.
And our emotions get that 6-second head start, you said.
That's the idea. Enough time to say or do something you seriously regret.
Yikes. So how do we get restraint? How do we stop the hijack?
2 main things. First, just being aware it's happening, recognizing the signs in yourself.
Okay, noticing the surge.
And second, consciously pausing. Giving your rational brain, the prefrontal lobes, the border patrol, time to catch up and weigh in.
So the prefrontal cortex does the risk assessment, like, is yelling right now really a good idea?
Exactly. It helps you choose a better response instead of just reacting. He even mentions a kind of off switch for for negative feelings in the brain, but it takes practice to use it.
Building that mental muscle to pause. What are some practical ways to do that? To contain outbursts.
Delaying your response is key. Just count to 10, take a breath, walk away for a minute.
Simple but effective.
And refusing the blame game. Shift focus from who's wrong to how do we fix this?
Okay, good strategies. Moving on an arrow, we get to resilience. Especially vital in sales, right? But really, for everyone.
Hugely vital. Anthony argues it might be the most important factor for long-term success, especially when you face setbacks. Without it, you fall prey to those negative inner voices.
It's about bouncing back.
Fundamentally, yes, your ability to get back up after being knocked down.
And he links this to optimism, but not in a simplistic way.
No, not rose-colored glasses. It's more like hope versus despair. Pessimism sees the bad, maybe contaminates it. Optimism sees potential, possibilities, even when things are tough.
It's that underlying belief things can get better. And crucial here is having a learning response to bad stuff.
Absolutely crucial. Seeing failure, disappointment, adversity not as the end, but as a chance to learn something.
He breaks down those sources of discouragement.
Yeah. Failure, our own mistakes, disappointment, others letting us down, and adversity, stuff beyond our control.
And for each, the goal is to ask, what can I learn here?
Exactly. Turn obstacles into fuel for growth.
That's a powerful shift. Now, what about motivation? He talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic.
Right. He found top performers are usually intrinsically motivated, driven from within.
By purpose, helping people.
The challenge itself.
Yes, things like that. Making a difference, enhancing lives, the thrill of solving a problem.
As opposed to extrinsic, which is more about money, status, external rewards. Which is fine, but if that's all that drives you, burnout is a real risk. You lose that deeper meaning.
So find your why, that internal engine.
It fuels resilience and keeps you going.
This seems connected to another idea he mentions, intentionality. What's that about?
Intentionality is about consciously choosing the emotional state you bring to interactions. Deciding to be positive, resisting negativity.
Like when faced with someone else's bad mood, asking yourself, what's the emotional need here, instead of just reacting?
Precisely. Taking a proactive stance on the emotional climate.
And he suggests this positive intent can actually dominate negative environments. He even gives that extreme example of the monks.
Yeah, the monks in the firestorm. It shows the power of a deeply resolved emotional state. You choose what emotional energy you put out there.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered the me parts: awareness, restraint, resilience. Now we shift to we, connecting with others, starting with empathy.
Exactly, moving from me to we, understanding others. And Anthony roots this heavily in personality.
He brings in the team dynamic system here.
Yes, as a way to understand not just ourselves, but how different styles interact. Relational dynamics.
We don't have all the details on team,
Well,
but it's based on those quadrant theories, right? With opposing styles.
right, like togetherness, T versus enterpriser, E, or analyzer, A versus motivator, M, different ways people are wired.
And understanding these differences is key, because that's where a lot of conflict comes from.
He argues it's often the root cause. People just operating from their natural style, clashing with another style.
So awareness here means knowing three things.
Yeah. Who we are, our style, who they are, their likely style, and what adjustments we need to make to connect better.
He gives some quick pointers on challenges for each style, like for togetherness types, high T.
Their challenge is often people-pleasing, avoiding conflict, maybe being oversensitive, needing affirmation. Growth involves being more objective, more assertive.
And the enterpriser, high E, the driven ones.
Impatience is often their big one. Impatient with people, with process, can come across as tactless sometimes.
Analyzers, high A, detail people.
Can be overly skeptical or critical. Risk of paralysis by analysis, sometimes value process over people, need maybe more flexibility.
And motivators, high M, the enthusiastic ones.
Challenges can be impulsivity, lack of follow-through, getting bored easily, maybe overlooking important details, need more discipline perhaps.
Just knowing these tendencies in ourselves and others gives us a roadmap.
A huge advantage. Which leads right into emotional radar, empathy.
Sensing what others feel and need.
Yes. Tuning in, listening actively, watching body language, really trying to get their perspective.
And he stresses simple curiosity here. That story about John, the top salesperson.
Yeah, his one-word secret. Curiosity, just being genuinely interested in other people.
Finding that urge to just focus on ourselves.
That narcissistic urge, yeah. Instead, practice emotional archaeology.
Digging into their story, their history, goals, challenges.
Exactly. Understanding their context before jumping to solutions. So many people rush that part. Yeah.
getting their story, because everyone is unique, but also shares common ground.
Right. Like some, like others, like no other. Recognizing all three aspects.
And remembering that core principle, it's not about you.
Yes. Approaching things with a passion to serve others. That's a hallmark of resilient, successful people.
Makes total sense.
Okay.
Empathy covered. Last part of Arrow, working with others, building rapport.
Right. And likability matters just as much as ability in the long run.
And relationships need constant attention. That emotional bank account idea.
Exactly. You make deposits by keeping promises, being dependable, showing you care, simple courtesy.
And withdrawals happen when you break trust, act disrespectfully.
Are unreliable. Got to keep that balance positive.
He really emphasizes basics like good manners, respect. Seems simple, but maybe easily forgotten.
So easily forgotten. He uses that Niles Kinnick story to show the power of integrity and mentions how top leaders value absolute honesty. Foundational stuff.
He also warns about being too aggressive, finding that balance with diplomacy.
Yeah, drive is good, but steamrolling people damages trust. Find the middle ground.
And don't take relationships for granted. Nurture them.
Constant nurturing.
Okay, so building rapport. How does EQ help with the tougher stuff, like conflict and negotiation?
Well, first, recognizing a lot of conflict is just personality clash. Different styles bumping heads.
Right.
So the goal is to build an emotional bridge. Understand where the other person is coming from based on their likely style.
Like the enterpriser versus togetherness example,
Yeah.
or analyzer versus motivator.
Yes. And then find compromises. Maybe the analyzer tries to be more personal, the motivator gets help organizing. Focus on the why personality patterns, not just the what, the specific argument.
That's a great shift. What about negotiation? Can be stressful.
Very emotionally vulnerable territory. He contrasts the win-lose types with EQ-savvy negotiators.
The EQ ones care about the other person's feelings and the future relationship.
Exactly. They listen actively to understand both the material and emotional needs. They aim for sustainable agreements where both feel okay.
Because a win that leaves the other person feeling ripped off isn't really a win long term.
Not if you want to work together again, no. They need to feel heard and respected.
Okay, so we've walked through the whole arrow. The last part of the book pulls it together, putting EQ into action. Self-management, social skills.
Yeah, it reinforces those core skills. Self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, social skills, with practical tips.
Like labeling your feelings, not people or situations.
Yes. Focus internally. I feel frustrated, not you're being difficult. Big difference.
And thinking about how your words land on others. Taking responsibility for your own feelings.
Absolutely. Showing respect for their feelings, validating them, even if you don't agree.
And that ask, don't tell idea. Avoid commanding, criticizing, lecturing.
Yeah. Approach with curiosity. Ask questions. Understand first. He even uses that funny fish head story
Yeah.
to illustrate reframing things, using a bit of wit. Don't take everything so seriously.
Good point. And he comes back to that idea of negativity being viral. We choose whether to spread it or rise above it.
We have that choice. Transmit or transcend. And be aware of your tone, especially under stress, like your wife pointed out to you.
Yes, indeed. A valuable, if slightly painful, lesson in self-awareness.
But it shows how important that feedback is. Ultimately, it's about self-discipline, building character through practiced conscious responses.
It's not just theory, it's skills you build over time.
Exactly. Through awareness and practice.
So wrapping this up for you, our listener, this deep dive really highlights that emotional intelligence, that awareness, restraint, resilience, empathy, relating well to others. It's a massive predictor of success, way more than just IQ.
Yeah, understanding these ideas and trying to apply them, that can really change how you navigate the world professionally and personally. Hopefully you've had some aha moments listening today.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Think about your own arrow profile, those critical mass components. Where are your areas for growth?
Yeah. How could understanding yourself and others better unlock new levels of connection, maybe achievement for you?
Yeah. Definitely something to reflect on using these EQ ideas.
Keep exploring, keep practicing those skills.
Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.